So let's jump right into it. Professor, on Friday, the 31st of January, Zimbabwe hosted an extraordinary Sadc summit and at Mount Hampden. Now, we were deliberating on the DRC conflict, which is escalating in recent weeks. What is your assessment of Zimbabwe's and, by extension, SADC's commitment in resolving the ongoing crisis?
You know, in the Sadc region, one of our prime objectives is to have a common future of prosperity, and prosperity comes in an environment of peace and stability. Therefore, in our view, our commitment to peace in the DRC is unparalleled. We want to bring peace and stability to the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we work in unison as a region. In the meantime, under the chairmanship of His Excellency the President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, when the problem escalated in the eastern part of the DRC, His Excellency found it fit as chairperson to call for an extraordinary Sadc meeting so that we map the way forward for peace and stability as part of mapping our common future as a region.
And now, just still on that one, can you give us a little snippets of probably the solutions that came from the summit on Friday?
One of the issues is to send the ministers of defense as well as the defense chiefs to the ground on the DRC so that they assess on the ground for the purpose of advising on exactly the route to take towards that peace. But also, what came out as very important was the recognition that in a conflict, there are multiple actors or a number of actors within a conflict. And each actor has a reason why they are in that conflict. Therefore, as part of the solution, we as Sadc are determined to engage all actors in the conflict so that they sit on the table and talk. Because at the end of the day, it's about peace. And peace brings development. You cannot develop and be prosperous in an environment of conflict. That's one of the most important resolutions that was made. Engagement of all parts of the conflict, of all actors, state and non-state actors within the conflict. And one of the issues also was a resolution for Sadc to have a joint meeting with the East African community through their excellencies, the chairperson of EAC, who is President Dr. Ruto, and the chairperson of Sadc, who is our president, His Excellency Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa. So these are broad parts of this solution-seeking movement, because at the end of the day, there has to be peace, because lack of peace in the DRC is lack of peace everywhere. And we have SAMI DRC, which is an intervention force that is in Goma and in the eastern part of DRC as part of the Sadc mission. And these also will take part in making sure that there is peace and stability in the eastern part of the DRC. The DRC is a very big country. It's a very strategic country for us as a region, for us as Africa. And peace in the DRC is peace in Africa.
Now, Honorable Minister, I understand that DRC has been at war for years now. Is there a guarantee that the strategies being put in place now is going to be the lasting solution to this crisis?
You know, everything has a beginning and everything has an end. And we go to the end through effort. So, hope is one of the most important characteristics of humanity. Lack of it can only lead to desperation and therefore no solution. So we are hopeful that every time we meet, we are moving an inch towards the solution. So we are not tired and will not be tired of seeking for a solution in the DRC, a peaceful solution in the DRC. In Zimbabwe, for example, we started our resistance in 1894. 1894 plus 6 is 1900. 1900 plus 80 is 1980 plus 6, it means 86 years of struggle. And we are at peace as we speak. So our time scale and God's time scale are different. But we have to keep on having an effort to move towards a peaceful solution. So the other issue basically is that how long is long? We say as long as it takes.
Honourable Minister, talking about the Sadc regional bloc, since Zimbabwe assumed the Sadc chairmanship in August 2024, what is the overview of our tenure so far?
You know, if you look at the program of Sadc, which is an industrialization program through innovation, and as you would know, the presidency of the Second Republic of Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa has been of modernization, innovation, industrialization. And then, by providence, he is the chairperson of Sadc, and Sadc has the same theme. So our movement is towards the industrialization and modernization of Sadc as a method to eradicate poverty, reduce and then finally eradicate poverty, because we eradicate poverty through production. And it goes back to basic issues or basic things that people require in life. People require food. People require water. People require communication like what we are doing right now, roads, telephones, and everything. People require health. People require sleep. People require innovation, kuchinja usavi. So all this can be provided for through innovation and industrialization. So far, if you pay attention to the lecture, public lecture, that was given by His Excellency the President before his assumption of chairmanship, it set the tone towards a common future that is driven by modernization and industrialization, basically providing for the needs of the people that I have detailed. So our presidency of Sadc, which is quite a humble, which we receive humbly, is that we want to contribute towards that direction of modernization, industrialization of Sadc towards a common future for this region. A common future that is characterized by peace and prosperity, but peace and prosperity comes through collective efforts. And collective effort is one of the methods that we use to realize our goals. And just last Friday, as you were describing, we had an extraordinary summit, and we had another extraordinary summit in November. All these are efforts towards that common future. All what we have comes through effort. And these are the efforts that we are making, peace-building efforts, peacemaking efforts towards that common future of the Sadc region.
Now, there are stakeholders who argue that His Excellency the President, Emmerson Mnangagwa's chairmanship role will strengthen Zimbabwe's bid for a non-permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council for the year 2027 to 2028. What is your response to that, and is it attainable?
Of course, it is attainable. Zimbabwe is policies which are spelled out in Section 12 of the Constitution, are very straightforward. One of the issues is that Zimbabwe belongs to a community of nations, and Zimbabwe must coexist peacefully with other nations, and that Zimbabwe must respect international law, and that Zimbabwe is committed to peaceful coexistence with its neighbors near and far, and that Zimbabwe should belong to multilateral organizations, starting with the Africa and the international community, that stand for the promotion of peace and prosperity. These are the values which we project to Sadc. These are the values that we project through the African Union. These are the values that we project to the United Nations. Therefore, it makes us a very good candidate for peacemaking throughout the world. We are a friend to all and an enemy to none, and we respect our own sovereignty and the sovereignty of other nations. This then helps us to project that disposition of a peaceful and a peacemaking country and a peacemaking president, a peacemaking region, a peacemaking Africa, which makes us, I think, a very good candidate in our contribution to a peaceful, tranquil, and prosperous world.
And what are the steps that have been taken towards that bid?
Yeah, we have approached all our friends across the whole world, and to make sure, especially through Africa, to make sure that we are supported for that bid, and we are very confident that the world will trust Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a very peaceful and democratic state that respects itself, that respects others, that respects the United Nations, through the African Union, through the Sadc region, and all these things are codified within our constitution, and they are codified within the president's doctrine of international relations that promotes integrity, dignity, and prosperity for all, and through Zimbabwe.
All right, Professor, we are here to reflect on the National Development Strategy 1. And one of the things that are in SDA is in National Development Strategy 1 is Zimbabwe's foreign policy. Can you help us unpack that, and what are the objectives of the foreign policy?
I want to start from a very simple premise. If you say a nation is prosperous, what would have happened? What is it? What are the indicators for a prosperous nation? I want to be very simple and straightforward. One, the nation must have enough food for itself to feed its people, because, you know, you and me, Messi, we are food with a spirit, isn't it?
Yes.
We are food. We're simply food. And we need water because we're 70% water, right? If you have food, if you call it plus food, plus water, plus shelter, plus health, plus means of communication, movement, plus health, plus innovation, which means we change the way we live every time to make it better and better and better and better. We are a prosperous nation, which means all these variables that I have talked about have plus, 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 plus. And what is poverty on the other side? If all these things have minus. Minus food, hungry. Minus shelter, poor. Minus water, thirsty. Minus infrastructure, poor. Minus health, even poorer, and so forth. So, if you agree this is poverty and prosperity, our national objective is towards achieving these things, which is spelled out in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, where our national objective can be summarized as to build a prosperous, democratic society which is free, where people have got prosperous, happy, and fulfilling lives. This is our national objective. And therefore, our foreign policy must be supporting this prime objective, which, if you look at Section 12, subsection 1, it talks about protecting Zimbabwe's national interests. The first most important interest is the dignity of this country, is the prosperity of this country, is the peace in this country, is the security of this country, the respect of international law, peaceful coexistence with our neighbors as a primary objective, because you can't be living a good life with neighbors that are not friendly to you. So we don't choose neighbors, we can choose friends. So neighbors have to be friends under whatever circumstance. And also, to belong to an international community, and that stands for peace and tranquility. This is our foreign policy objective, and is well stated in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, specifically subsection 12, section 12 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So we live by it. And all our laws and policies drive towards our prosperity. Because with prosperity, you foster peace, you foster tranquility, because it's a chicken and egg thing.
All right, Minister, sorry, let me just interject on that, right? We're still on the National Development Strategy.
Yes.
1. One of the key parts is the engagement and re-engagement policy. And what are the indicators that, what are the indicators, and what have we done so far, and are we still on track?
We are on track in the Second Republic. As I said, all these things that I've talked about, which make a prosperous nation, have to be achieved through engaging with our neighbors near and far, with the international community in general, affirming our good relations, reaffirming our good relations, engaging with people that are disengaged with us, and re-engaging everyone. As you know, our foreign policy, if I use it in doctrinal terms or in general terms, friend to all, enemy to none. This is about engagement. Number 2, nyika ichivakwa nevene vayo, a country being built by its own people. That is the basis of trade. Because trade means I sell you something, you sell me something. Trade is different from buying. Because sometimes people, they call themselves traders, but they are buyers actually. Because a trader produces something, sells something, and receives something from there. So the basis of all our diplomacy and our foreign policy is all about trade at the end of the day. So NDS1, which is looking at the prosperity of Zimbabwe, has its main issue, its main ingredient is foreign policy. Because our foreign policy has to be looking at how we exchange goods and services with our neighbors near and far. And this can only happen in an environment where we are a friend to all and an enemy to none, but we also have self-respect when we are building our own country, and when we are using our brain, where we are saying freedom of the mind, chimurenga chepfungwa, revolution of the mind, where we are also saying we are open for business, where we are also saying we are sovereign. All these are ingredients of which are important in supporting our national development strategy. Call it 1, call it 2, call it 3, call it 4, call it 5, call it whatever number. But national development strategy is about bringing national prosperity, where we obtain all the needs of life that we need to have. And this is the spirit of the National Development Strategy 1, and this is how foreign policy and how it has been coined in the Second Republic will support this. At the end of the day, it's about Zimbabwe's integrity, it's about Zimbabwe's dignity, it's about Zimbabwe's prosperity, but supported by a foreign policy that fosters peace and tranquility, and that makes sure that Zimbabwe is a friend to all and an enemy to none.
Honorable Minister, the Second Republic, led by His Excellency the President Emerson Mnangagwa, and started and popularized the mantra, Zimbabwe is open for business. How successful has this been in foreign direct investment from all over the world in industries such as mining, tourism, agriculture, and manufacturing?
You would know that our doctrine or doctrinal principle of Zimbabwe is open for business. It's meant to drive that national objective of prosperity, as I said. So when you look at even Zimbabwe's GDP, the growth of the GDP, starting from 2017, it was something around estimated, and 2018 estimated around 16 billion. But Zimbabwe's GDP now is estimated to over 50 billion. That's more than 300% growth in our GDP. What has been driving this? It has been driven by agriculture, our production and our exports in agriculture. It has been driven by our mining, because our mining has grown to over 12 billion in terms of its contribution to GDP. It has been driven by our tourism. People visit people that are visitable. And visitable people are tranquil, they are peaceful, they are friendly. And therefore, you see that our international tourism has contributed now over 5 billion annually to our GDP. Just this December, we are told by the Ministry of Tourism and Hospitality Industry, and by reality, actual statistics, that in December alone, we had over 1 million visitors, generating at least $9 billion into the economy. So you see how our open for business has helped to propel this country. However, we have not yet arrived. We are still moving. Tiripa Gwendo. This is the way a country lives. We are very positive, and the direction in which we are going is towards the north. We are not going south. South meaning deterioration, north meaning prosperity. So we are going north.
Honorable Minister, let's talk a bit about the highly anticipated Expo 2025 Osaka in Japan, which is slated to begin in April 2025. How critical is this for Zimbabwe's engagement and re-engagement agenda in tourism and innovation?
You know, for a country's prosperity to happen, we have to be able to buy and sell, which means we must have trade. And trade is promoted using platforms. Osaka Expo 2025, just like the Dubai Expo 2020 that went before it, are platforms where Zimbabwe can engage with other nations, showcasing what we have, but also seeing what they have, in order for trade to happen between our countries. As you would know, after our expo in Dubai, I cannot attribute directly all of it to that, but you will see that UAE has become one of the largest trading partners of Zimbabwe. There has been a meteoric rise in the trade volumes between Zimbabwe and the UAE. I don't know, I've not analyzed to which extent Dubai Expo contributed to it, but I think it's also a factor. So Osaka 2025 is going to be another opportunity for Zimbabwe to showcase what it has and also see what the world has, so that there can be exchange of goods and services between Zimbabwe and other countries, which is basically providing us with a platform for promoting our international trade. Just like at a local level, how ZITF also promotes our international trade. So if you look at it, Zimtrade is busy with it, and the commissioner for the Osaka Expo is our CEO for Zimtrade, which is under currently the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. Our expectation, not hope of course, but our expectation is that this visit, this presence at Osaka 2025 is part of a broader strategy of engaging and re-engaging for the purpose of promoting international trade between Zimbabwe and other countries and for the prosperity of our country. Don't forget, our primary objective as a country is the prosperity of people of Zimbabwe. But it can be shared prosperity when Zimbabwe is trading with other countries. So other countries can benefit from Zimbabwe and we benefit from them. That is our main objective. So as we move forward, we must always know that our foreign policy is a projection of our internal desires as Zimbabwe. And we want people to benefit from us and benefit from them. And together as a human community, as a world community, we are bound by exchange of goods and services, which is trade. And trade is promoted using platforms. And one of the platforms is Osaka 2025.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And now we have come to an end to our program. Thank you so much for having us here on ZTN Prime. Here you have it. We had the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Professor Amon Murwira, here in the studio to discuss the foreign affairs of the nation Zimbabwe. Have a good evening.
Konapo, ipapo, ipapo.